Welcome to the Lower Florida Keys, our slice of paradise here in South Florida, where people come from around the world to vacation or move for a lifetime. Our Lower Keys are known for its abundance fresh seafood, whether it's shrimp, lobster, mahi, tuna. Everything is available year round. However, it does come with a sticker shock if you're buying it at a local restaurant or even in the local seafood markets. So, this video is going to give you some tips on how to catch your own lobster while you're here in the lower Florida Keys. It's simple to do right from shore with no boat required. Let's get started with some critical information. First, the lobster season. There's a 2-day sports season that lasts Wednesday and Thursday each July before the regular season opens. This is a super busy time of year, one of the busiest 2 days for visitors down here in the Florida Keys, and our regular season is August 6th through March 11th. Another critical thing to know is your daily harvest limit. Each licensed fisherman may take 6 lobsters per day, and your license must have a lobster tag on it. Also, know your size limit. Lobsters must have a carapace, that's the body, of at least 3 inches, and you're required to measure the lobsters in the water using a lobster measuring tool before removing them. Another thing to know that a lot of people miss is you are not allowed to take lobsters from artificial reefs. This includes debris fields, which are common down here due to all the storms. And lobsters love to hide in there. But again, you can't take lobsters from those spots. Want you to stay safe on the water, follow all the rules and regulations, and always use a dive flag when you're out catching your lobsters. We love our stand-up paddle boards for catching lobsters. They're a fast, easy platform to get on and off of, especially with the shallow water lobster that we're going to be doing in this video. I use these mushroom weights on the paddle boards on windy days. On days with no wind, I don't bring them out, but they keep the board from blowing away while you're down diving for lobsters. There's your lobster measuring tool. I always keep that handy in a safe spot on the paddle board. You also need a net, tickle stick, and the bucket's required because you must keep your lobsters alive until you return to the dock. A good quality mask is also an essential piece of equipment. You'll also need a pair of gloves to catch the lobsters. Our lobsters do not have claws, but they are spiny lobsters. You'll notice I have boat shoes on here. They're waterproof boat shoes because those are jellyfish and they love to lay on the bottom upside down, tentacles up. And don't forget your dive flag. We're lucky because we're just a few hundred feet from our bay, from our own dock here in the lower Keys. So it's a short paddle out. And you notice I always paddle on my knees when I've got gear on board. I'm not the most graceful person standing up on my paddleboard. So instead of risking losing my gear or dumping lobsters over, I always kneel when I'm out lobstering or I have other gear on my paddleboard with me. You can see our bay is crystal clear and it's largely a grass bottom, both ideal for catching lobster. Lobsters love to hunt for food in the seagrass, so always looking for bottom with plenty of seagrass around. We do have sharks here on the Florida Keys. This nurse shark, and nurse sharks are very docile, but I always check under ledges before I start poking around because they will bite if you're disturbing them. Always look for small rocks or large rocks because no matter how big or small, they almost always house lobsters. This nice sized lobster was under this small little rock crammed into the tiniest of spaces. So don't pass something over just because it looks too small. This is from a boat channel that's not used. There was never any homes built on this out on the bay. And these ledges are full of cracks and crevices that hold a huge supply of lobsters. So we go from 2 feet deep on the bay side to about 10 feet deep on the channel. And this little guy is right here at the top. And he's too small. I know he's not, but I'll show you. I try and get the tickle stick in here to coax him out, but this is a deep crevice. There's no way he was coming out of this one. Here's another little guy down at the bottom of these ledges. And he's too small, so I'm not even going to get close and disturb him. But you can see as we go up, we're going from about 4 or 5 feet deep right there to about 2 feet deep onto this abundant ledge of grass. And a great time to go lobstering is right as the sun's getting ready to go down because the lobsters will emerge from this deep water and those hiding places out onto the grass for hunting their food. Here, we found this lobster out in the grass bed right in the middle of the day. And always drop your net behind the tail. They swim and shoot off backwards. So if you go head first, they're going to shoot out from underneath your net. And this guy, I noticed right away, he is too small, so I'm not even going to bother measuring him. I'm just going to dump him right out and send him back to grow some more. This is an example of a debris field. This is somebody's roof that blew off their house during a recent hurricane and ended up here in the bay. These fields hold tons of lobsters. Tons, but you are not allowed to take lobster from these. Here is a submerged barrel that we found that looks like somebody may have illegally cut this hoping to trap lobsters, but you are not allowed to take lobsters from items like these. We do mark these spots, so out in the evening we can come out nearby and see if they're coming out onto the grass fields where you are allowed to catch them. Here I'm measuring a lobster, and we do measure these in the water. I just took this out of the water to give you an example. So from right between the horns, the length of the carapace, and you can see this guy is just a little too short, maybe an eighth of an inch too short. So he is going to go back in and live for another day. And again, here's another one. He was a good sized lobster. I thought he'd make it, but I measured him in the water and he was just a hair too short. So just checking him, I'll show you again. Even if it's touching at both ends, if it fits inside that 3-inch measuring gap, that is too small. And you can see that fits inside. So he is just too small. In a couple of months, he will be ready to go and good for dinner. This guy was our first keeper of the day. And in about 45-50 minutes, we ended up catching our limit for this day. We came in with 6 lobsters and all pretty good size. I like to euthanize our lobsters before I separate the tails. Lobsters do feel pain, so euthanizing them to me is the better way to go before we pull that tail off. Just a super sharp knife right at the back of the head and splitting that open kills them instantly. And that is it. So on these, we twist the tails off for the smaller ones. The large ones you'll see have a ton of meat in the upper body, so those we boil whole. Again, on the smaller ones, you just grip and you can twist, turn the tails right off. The upper body part on these, we always keep. We freeze those, then smash them up with a hammer, then freeze them in a lot of water in a bag, and then we add that to our chum mix when we're out fishing, and it's a great supplement to your chum. These are whole lobsters that we cooked whole. The larger lobsters have a ton of meat in those upper bodies, so we never waste that. If they're big ones, we cook them whole. These lobster tails, we like to split in half on both the bottom and the top. Then we'll clean out the intestines, which you'll see here in a second, and it's just a straight vein that runs right down the back from the body all the way to the tail, and it pulls right out, and you'll see that here in just a second. Another tip, and this one, the meat's a little tough pulling out of the shell. If you refrigerate these overnight, the meat separates right from the shell right away, and it helps you make a nicer presentation with your lobster. But this works. You just have to work a little bit if you're cooking them fresh. So we separate the meat, turn them inside out. We'll put a little butter on those, baste them, and then bake them on 425 for 14 minutes, and your lobster dinner is ready. Hope you enjoyed this. Please click like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the lower keys.